hip roof.
Oh, the old shed roof that was on the side of the house?
No, I'm talking about,
This?
no.
Oh.
This inspiration picture has a hip roof on it, but it's kind of drawn, well, it's kind of drawn with a hip roof.
Yeah, the drawing is...
From the side.
Yeah, the drawing is, needs a little...
Yeah, on
Work.
here it looks like
Yeah.
it's a shed roof
Here,
on this front elevation.
Oh,
that's,
sorry.
that's a shed
That's,
roof.
I meant to take that out of the presentation,
that's an old,
Yeah, that's an
Right.
rainstorm. Yeah.
But, in other words, if you look at it in plan, you know, if this is the stoop hood, basically what we're talking about is probably something like this,
Correct,
or.
That
yeah,
kind of-
because-
exactly, that you can see in this, it does start up a little higher and
Right.
Yeah, it
and there's
flares
the
out.
copper,
Yeah, I think with the fact that you're projecting out this far,
yeah,
it means that, this slope will probably wind up being something
a
like
little more
that.
gradual, yeah.
And then these,
The corbel will be right there, yes.
okay. Okay.
So we've got the 3 windows that are just vinyl windows. The dormer, the basement, and I'm sorry, it's 4 windows, and then on both sides of the attic. For the attic and basement windows, we've found we're gonna salvage windows, have them reputtied, have the glass put back in, and have them be double hungs. And then for the dormer, I've got the specs. We're gonna do something that's truly divided light, that cranks out just like these two in the dormer here, but that are divided light in wood, just because the dormer is just really an eyesore.
Yeah, it's inconsistent with the rest of the windows.
It is, yeah. So we're gonna actually do 6 pane divided, and I've got the specs for that. Oh, I also have the specs on the cut sheet for the shutters at the back of the presentation, and then I've got the cut sheet for the windows that we're gonna be choosing, so the weather shield, wood. And then underneath somebody put roofing on the side of the dormer, but underneath are fish scale cedar shingles. So those look a little bit better, so we're just gonna pull that side of it off and just rebuild the old shingles.
Great.
So I'm just trying to spruce it up a bit. And then the final is just all the inspiration that we got for just these different elements.
Okay, the replace modern dormer window with divided light replacement windows. Single glaze or double glaze? Because the existing ones that you have the photograph of are single glazed.
I'm sorry.
These are for the.
These are for the attic and the basement, and then
We're
we're gonna
ordering
order
those.
new windows,
The weather shield.
weather shields for the dormer. Because
It's a heated space.
it's just it is nice to have that crank out. I mean, we have a lot of double hungs throughout the house. It is nice to have.
Well, when you say divided light, you know, it's basically has buttons which divide the
Yes.
light. But this is a projecting window.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. That's what's there now. It just is single panes.
yeah. Okay, so in this window and this window, you're talking about these, using these.
Yep.
And you have those in the basement or someplace?
Yep, they came out of our barn,
Okay.
and so we're
The
gonna.
one that's on the verge of collapse.
A barn that's not
Not
collapsing
anymore.
anymore. We solved that problem.
Okay, good. Okay, so, let me recap. Well, first of all, I guess this is a new application, so, secret status. Anybody wanna make a motion concerning secret?
I move that it's type 2, it's a modification to a residential structure.
And a second?
Yeah, I would second that.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so let's recap, and anybody who has questions, please ask them now. And we'll go through these, and see what we can approve today.
Start with the.
Start with the stoop. Now, the stoop, my feeling is that stoop, we should wait until we get a drawing which explains how he's gonna do that. I mean, I don't have any problem with the bluestone, I think that's a good idea. The brick tile, I'm not crazy about, but I'm willing to go along with that as far as, you know, and how it's being used here. But I am concerned about being able to do this properly and get the right look. So I would like to see a drawing of how the mason plans on doing it.
Do you know if it currently is, the width, is it currently wide enough to meet code? Do you know?
The treads.
Yeah.
They are. They're I have
What
those
is-
dimensions
what's
in
the
my
code?
head.
It could be that it's existing non-conforming, and so they're not really changing anything, they're not
Well,
making
my
them not-
question is, if it's existing and non-conforming, then how much work to it is considered a substantial amount of work, which would then push it over the threshold to become conforming?
Well, typically the way the code says is that if you increase the level of non-conformance, in other words.
Which they're not doing, because they're.
Which you're
they'd be
not,
maintaining the same
and
shape.
basically all you're doing is really resurfacing it.
Okay,
Well, at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
sure.
I mean, so, I would, you know, if, I would like to defer this until the 25th, and we get a sketch from your mason on how that he's looked at this carefully enough to make the adjustments and make it code compliant. I mean, because,
Yeah. I just have one idea, which I think I think I'm remembering he proposed this as an idea. What if we take 2 inches off that top piece,
right,
and then
The landing?
the landing,
Okay.
and then we add the 2-inch bluestone there, so we don't change the height of that landing.
right.
Yeah, I guess
It's late
Yeah,
at night to be thinking about
mathematically,
these
it doesn't really
things.
work.
it's. Yeah. I thought I had it.
You're probably
Well,
really close.
But, you know, and ultimately, I think that, you know, he needs to show us, because if you don't work it out ahead, you know, you're gonna wind up with something being off, and, you know, the building inspector then won't accept it because it doesn't comply with the code.
Right.
So it's better that he think it through and figure out the dimensions that he's gotta change and what he's gotta change.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the bottom riser is especially high, you know, gives you some room to maneuver
Yeah.
but, you know, and you need to work it out.
Yep.
And that,
You don't want
that's
the
how-
building inspector to show up and say, oh, do this all over again.
Right, right.
Well, I guess the other
It's a
question
slow
too
process,
is,
but it's
code
avoiding
says that
that
they all have to be the
scenario.
same.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
that
saying
wouldn't
the
be
code
ideal.
is that each riser has to be the same height.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be a specific height, it needs to be within a range.
And well, that has changed a little bit, and I don't think you want to go there because now the magic number is 711, and theoretically, most codes nowadays say you can't be more than 7 inches high. You said that you got 7.5 inches, which I think is an existing stair. It's non-conforming. It may not be wide enough. All of those things that all you're doing is resurfacing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can't know until the building inspector looks at the drawing and an explanation anyway, so.
So, the 25th.
That would be great, yeah, we'll be ready to go.
Okay. So the stoop, we'll talk about it on the 25th. Okay, the railing. Anybody have any questions, comments concerning the railing?
I do not.
The precedent that you saw for this railing around town, was it residential or were they commercial? Or both?
There aren't a ton of residential wrought iron railings in
Mhm.
town. That's not true, there are a couple, there's one on Main Street.
Well, we approved the one
There's
at,
one
Main Street, the new construction house, wasn't that right?
224.
that one.
That
Next to-
was
Wasn't that wrought iron?
DeFranco and Reeves.
Yes,
Yes, that was a much
not an ornate one,
much more simpler design
Right.
than this. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other examples.
I'm not disputing that there are wrought iron railings in residential use around the village, because there definitely are. But
Yeah.
but ones which are this ornate. It gives, I think that it just gives the building a little bit more of a, I'm not saying commercial in a bad way, but it gives it more of a formal sort of, it makes it seem more like.
Well, it's in conversation with the other stoops on Main Street, which are
Right.
more ornate with their wrought iron
Right.
railings.
That's kind of just the thing that jumped out to me. It seems less of a residential application, but I don't think that I think it's a nice design. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. My concern is that I wouldn't want it to look like something which was added because it seemed historic, even if it wasn't actually historic to this building or to buildings of this vintage that were
Yeah.
residential. I mean, obviously that this building never had a wrought iron railing on it
That's right.
because it had a porch on it before.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
unless there's really
Porch,
good
right.
examples of this type of design on similar types of buildings, it seems like you're adding sort of like a character defining feature to this house, and I wouldn't want it to be interpreted as being like an arbitrary addition to the building.
Right.
Because it's such a distinct design.
Yeah, I
The
think.
design it has now is like, you don't even know that it's there. It's like kind of that like
Right.
just
Kind of my.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Which
we're
is
trying
not
to get away from
necessarily
that.
always a bad thing, but it's like it's kind of a thing where you're just like, oh, like who knows when this showed up because it has like no real sort of like basis in reality. It's just like a guardrail to keep people from falling off.
Right.
Like this is very much a design statement, and
Well,
without there being a really
I think we were inspired by the wooden porch, the original,
Mhm.
which had some ornamentation.
right.
And I feel like the other houses on Stone Street do too. It's wood.
Mm-hmm.
And originally we talked about having like a wooden railing, but just because we're up against the street, we get so much snow from the
Right.
plow that we
Yeah.
steered away from having any wood on the porch at all.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of like that ornamentation that was there, but I think this was like our way of adding some of that was
Yeah,
lost.
reclaiming the ornamentation, just doing
a
it
little,
with
yeah.
material.
The house itself was, you know, it's lost a lot of, I mean, it's lost a lot of its face. I mean, this house was late 1830s, possibly early 1840s. I mean, it was, you know, in that era, it was one of the few, I think, houses in town that was had an architect, and
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't a
You
foundry
can
worker
afford
house.
to do that kind of craftsmanship.
And so I think there was, you know, you go inside and there are, you know, there are these just spectacular pocket doors. So there's a little more.
Art, some
The owners,
inspiration.
whoever built it
behind
had a little
yeah.
more money, and I
Mhm.
don't think was a foundry worker per se.
Well,
So-
you said that it was built by Parrot, right?
He
It wasn't
owned
built
it.
by Parrot.
We
He
don't-
owned it
yeah.
at one point.
He
We don't know
owned
who
it,
built
but
He owned it, and he may have died.
Well, he sold it like right before he died.
You know.
okay.
Did you guys go to the, it's kind of a fun one-off, did you go to the Putnam County Clerk's office and go through the, yeah, you
The
had to do,
deeds,
yeah,
yes.
the deeds, yeah.
I went down
Yeah.
the rabbit hole.
If
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
can read the handwriting, we could
We
really
have
use your
one.
help.
And there's also
we hit
a lot
dead
of,
end. Yeah.
names that get slightly misspelled, and that can throw you off track.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're not open to other simpler designs.
Mhm.
And the
Just
house,
as- just
the house
kind of-
always felt has like a federal feeling
I
to
was about
us.
to say, it has
It's a little,
yeah.
you know, it feels a little older
Yeah.
than,
The thing that you have to remember is that, you know, the Victorian period where you had a lot of this ornamentation really was after the Civil War.
That's right. When people had
Sort
more
of,
money.
well, it was more than that, is that you had all
Technology.
of these machines that were used to crank out guns and a lot of other wood pieces for weapons of war. Now all of a sudden didn't have,
right,
you know, needed something else, and so they
Right.
started cranking out a lot of these wood ornamentations.
Even if, I think if you just, I mean,
The only, I understand what Sean's talking about, and I'm sorry, did I?
well,
You
I'm
were
just
about to
saying,
say something,
if
and
I would
keep
reduce some of
interrupting
the
you, sorry.
filigree around this base here, I mean, it's, I get it, the guy was a craftsman, he works with wrought iron, this is like,
his
his
passion.
passion is turning that wrought iron, and this is beautiful, but, I don't know, if you could just maybe reduce the amount of filigree on the bottom and maybe, these medallions, I don't know, sorry.
I mean, there are definitely medallions in town. Like that's,
Yeah.
we definitely have seen the decorative medallions.
Yeah, I think that the thing that you have to think about is that this railing will be what holds your eye as you view the building. And from what I heard you say, it didn't sound like you really wanted that. You wanted something that you could see the building through. So, I'm not sure that much ornamentation really makes sense. That, and also, for example, what happens here? Because typically, these are the posts, right? These are the ones that come down. And so, do we have that as it turns the corner? Because this, you've got another railing which goes back to the building, right?
Yes, it's, 3 feet or so, yeah.
That, and also, one of the things, and I'm not totally sure, since this is residential, it may be a lot easier, but currently the code requires that the railings go one tread down past the last riser.
Okay.
So theoretically, and you notice over here, the handrail comes down and then flattens out.
Hmm.
That's the way it used to be, but it probably would be nice if you had something which came down like that on the sidewalk, and this railing continued on, because essentially what you're doing is you're stopping it one tread up,
Yeah.
and
Well,
most,
I don't think we could do that though, because we only have this, where's the picture in front of the house? We don't have any room because, see, we have this little pocket that you walk in.
Yeah.
This is dirt, and then you just have this little pocket to walk in. So you would be blocking the
Well, if that's the case, then, probably stopping the railing here would make sense. It just that essentially you're stopping it up here to be able to get the post in to here. See what I mean?
right.
Mm-hmm.
And what you may be better off is that, having a post here, but continue the railing down
Right.
and terminating it somehow like that.
Right.
Yeah, because it actually makes it too tall to grab when you're standing at the
When it ends on the
pavement.
last step.
Yeah. So it's an appropriate height when you're standing on the step, but before you get onto the step, it's like a little too tall.
Right.
I guess also Al raises the point too of how it turns, the return that goes up against the building, which is that going to incorporate it? I don't think it would. So the way that this is designed right now, you have these much larger details on all of the supporting posts that go, that continue down into the surface, except on this corner, which means that I guess you wouldn't have one on the back because in a 3-foot span, it would just be connected at the corner and then at the building, unless you would want to add one for the sake of having another one.
Right.
But I think to Andrea's point about removing the detail along the bottom, this sort of kind of frieze that goes along the bottom, I would be inclined to keep that and keep that as the main sort of decorative detail of it, and then simplifying it on the balusters themselves, and then that would actually kind of open up the view to the house itself a little bit more. So maybe only using the sort of smaller detail on the baluster, getting rid of this bigger motif, and that might just be enough of a simplification
I
to
think
make it a little.
It might be.
What you're talking about is actually, I think, is interesting. This was our inspiration for it. I think this is the brownstone in New York, but so it didn't have those larger medallions, but you can see it doesn't feel like it's some giant cage that's
Like a
blocking
bit,
their house. Like
right.
it's not, it's still pretty breezy.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing all this work with restoring the door and
Yeah.
the beautiful hood. It would almost distract from the things behind it.
The other difference just about that specific example is that in that example you're looking at it, that's running perpendicular to
That's
the
right.
facade of the house.
Yeah,
it's not
just
running
the stairs.
in parallel to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you could just make it, just a touch
We're not trying to make it cheesy.
streamlined.
No, we know that. You're replacing window panes, for God's sake.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the type of thing that would just make it a little more understated, maybe if you just removed that sort of larger.
I see where you were going.
I actually like that idea. I like removing the larger.
Yeah, they're almost a little out of
Yeah.
not to, diminish the effort this man put into this design, but
Yeah.
they're almost a little out of scale with the
Yeah.
with the scale of the railing system itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's on the right track.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I recommend that you come back on the 25th with a revision to this?
Yep.
I mean, it's dependent on what you're gonna do here anyway. You really can't do anything on the stoop
Yeah,
until.
this comes after the stoop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just so we're clear, if we were to remove these large decorative pieces, that would be amendable.
Yeah, I think that
just
would
the
kind of be
three-
enough. And then once those are removed, just kind of look at the rhythm of how the do you remove those and then do you space out the
space it
the
out.
smaller pattern maybe by one more row. I mean, just kind of play with it and see how it works once you do remove those. Just kind of how it works overall. But I do think when you come back, if we could get the
View from the side.
The side view.
the view from the side or in plan, just kind of seeing how it works, and the outer corner, how that's going to be addressed, and also if we just scale up the design on this sort of bottom, the kind of stringer that goes along, just because it's a little murky of what.
Oh yeah,
In
yeah,
other words,
yeah. I
this
blew
is
this
how-
up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to read.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah,
what's
just
going
what it
on.
actually is going to be. Is it going to be something that's kind of
It's
solid
it's
and
supposed to look like
die
this.
cut, or
No, it's supposed to look like this. It's just when I blew it up,
It's
oh,
blurred.
okay,
It
so
blended
it's just
together.
that.
it's just those little
Okay.
Yeah, but we can have them do that. Yep.
Okay.
And so and then also for the railing, the recommendation is that rather than having a newel post, we just end.
Yeah,
That's
I-
an Al thing.
well, I mean, one of the things that you ought to think about is that, if you're removing the medallions on the post, it looks like the posts that hold the railing, are they the same size as the pickets? Okay, 1 inch solid posts, whereas the pickets are 1/2 inch. Okay. I think that, I mean, for all of the reasons, I think you're better off allowing the railing to continue beyond the newel post. I think that, you can stop it right at the end of that first riser. That's what my recommendation would be. Having seen the photograph of what you're trying to accomplish, I wouldn't be upset about a newel post that kind of looked like that, because to me that made more sense than what I saw in the drawing. But I would suggest that you talk to the building inspector to see if he has any objections. Only because it's a new installation. The newel post is something which obviously couldn't be built as new. He may not allow you to do that, but I don't want to speak for him,
Okay.
because building inspectors tend to have their own opinions on things. So,
Okay.
from my particular point of view, I wouldn't have any problem that the newel post looked like what was in the picture. But I would suggest that you talk to the building inspector and just get his okay on it. Again,
Okay.
it's one of those things you don't want to, spend a lot of money doing something and then having him come along and say, no, sorry, this doesn't comply.
Right.
Okay, the copper downspouts,
Yes.
I think that we can approve. Restoration gutters, anybody have any?
Shutters?
Shutters.
Oh, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, they look great.
Salvage door, replacement door.
I think it's beautiful. I'm really into it.
Yeah.
Thank God, 'cause we already bought it.
I
We
mean,
know
it
this.
is
Borski's is not
it's new.
cheap.
It is new material. I mean, it is new, old fabric, but I think it's
I think
Yeah.
it
it's a
fits
good choice.
literally in the jam.
Yes.
Yeah.
The stoop hood cover with the modification, with the brackets and the fact that it's not a shed roof, but it's a hip roof.
Right. I think in principle it's great, but I think that we're going to have a much more detailed drawing to
Yeah.
give to the building inspector of how
25th?
the whole thing is
Yeah.
going to be
We'll have our
executed and
Carpenter
what's
draw it.
Yeah, just to show exactly what's going in there.
And the one thing, tell him to take a look, you know, he needs to measure the space. From what I remember of the elevation, I think you've got more than enough room, but because you're further out, obviously it's going to be higher than
Right.
what you have here,
Mhm.
because it's got a slope.
Yep.
So he just needs to make
And
sure
it's gonna
he's
go
got enough.
above the lintel too, so we don't have a ton of room to play with.
Well, you should be okay, because, you know, realistically, I think you're only talking about, you know, like a 1/4 inch per foot. But, you know, yeah, you're gonna be above the lintel, and you've got this space over here. And if I had a magnifying glass, I'd count brick courses and tell you how much room you actually have. But you should have enough room for, you know, but again, it's something that realistically you want to work out ahead of time before the guy starts building it.
And
Yep.
what's the roof of the hood? What is that material gonna be?
Copper.
Copper. Okay, so that should be
Just use
called
copper
out
flashing.
as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what you're gonna need is flat seam, because standing, well, you're not gonna have, you don't have enough room for standing seam. So, flat seam is, you know, they solder it and fold it over and solder it again.
Okay. I did.
And it's
I
gonna
haven't
be
gotten that far.
untreated copper. It'll just be regular copper that will,
That will turn.
yeah,
that will
age
fade.
and patina.
Okay, 25th, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Attic and basement windows.
I'm cool with these.
Yeah. They're returning them
Okay,
to the rightful
so-
place.
do I have a motion for the following items? The copper downspouts.
I will move
Wait,
from
wait,
sec-
wait,
oh,
no,
oh,
let's
a
go
list.
from one. Restoration shutters, salvage replacement door, and attic and basement windows. Do I have a motion on that? I approve a motion on that as submitted.
I would move to accept those as submitted.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Sean,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So those are approved. There are 3 that we're going to see again. It'll be the front stoop, the railing for the front stoop, and the stoop hood and cover on the 25th.
25th. We will revisit.
That's right.
We've never turned down an application for giving us too much information and too many drawings and too many details, so
Okay.
keep that in
We'll
mind.
keep that in mind. How do we make sure we get on for the 25th? Because
Andrea will make sure that you're on.
I guess that's my job.
we definitely, we can turn this stuff around real quick.
You will definitely be on the schedule.
Okay.
We've got you covered.
Great.
Oh,
And the sooner you, I know that it's a pretty tight turnaround already, but the sooner you get the materials to Jeff, if there is any sort of a problem,
Yeah.
Kathleen will review everything the Friday before the meeting,
Oh,
usually.
right.
Kathleen's usually sitting here. That's
Yeah,
why
so
we're
if,
taking
so
the
if
joke.
you do it, well, I don't know what day that is, but so if you can get the stuff to Jeff by like lunchtime on the Friday before, then
Yep.
she'll have enough chance to
Mhm.
look at everything, and if there's anything else we need you to bring, you'll have time to gather it all.
Got it. Well, but she won't be weighing in on. She won't be able to say, "Hey, this isn't. You know, it's still not kind of where we want it to be." That's
Well, what we just approved now is approved.
right.
But
So-
on the stoop.
As
and
far as the quality of the design,
Like let's say we decide to move those larger pieces of ornamentation from the wrought iron railing,
right?
and then we come in on the 25th
And she said
we
something else.
we decide, well, it's still not doing it for us.
Right. We can only
if-
review it in a session.
Okay.
So she
That
can
was
only
my
tell
question.
you whether or not there's enough information.
Right. Got it. Okay.
And you are fortunate enough where, if on the 25th, 2 weeks after that, we do in fact have our regular meeting again.
Okay.
So we're in a period where we're seeing more of each other than we would like at this particular point.
We've been in that period since October.
Yeah,
I don't know why you're making it sound like it's some new thing.
8 weeks
Well,
was our
no,
last streak.
initially it, it's
And Sundays.
And then, well, for the board members that are missing tonight, will they, I just wanna make sure they have context for everything that we discussed in terms of what.
What,
we want
Carolyn?
to change.
Carolyn was here for the initial presentation.
And
Kathleen
so
was
is
not.
Kathleen.
No, just
Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Oh, just Kathleen, okay.
Yeah.
She was here. Gave the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, okay.
What was approved is approved.
Right.
I think the context, everybody has the context of what you're trying to do.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Great. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that everything?
All right,
That can go
We
back
have,
in the folder.
No.
8
I-
Furnace
I-
Street
I
waiting.
need to process some of this.
Oh, okay.
you want
Then-
this? Well, you need this.
Yeah.
We're gonna need copies of, okay, well, we'll just, do we need to have one copy of the application that's for the items that we approved, and then another copy for the things we're gonna approve in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. You will,
I will
you
do
will
the
maneuver
slicing
making
and
all of those
dicing.
copies?
The slicing and dicing.
I'll be right back.
Okay. You must be 4 Stone Street.
No, I am 8 Furnace Street.
8,
It's
That was 4 Stone Street, that was, we just spoke to.
okay. 8 Furnace Street, come on down.
all right.
We slipped behind schedule.
Well, I'd say we're still on schedule, running a half hour late.
Alright.
Latest thing open in in Cold
So we
Spring.
stay open later than the bar.
We should open a bar, seriously.
I was very surprised.
Thank you for waiting.
No problem. Thank you for having me down.
Sure.
My wife apologizes for not being here. She's home with the
Well, she
she's
should.
home with the baby.
That's fine.
No. How old?
She's going to be 3 months next week.
Oh, wow.
Just hit-
Still
just
not
hit
sleeping.
11.
Hang in there. Oh, you sent me Tots Park fence.
What's that?
Tots Park fence. That was me.
Oh yes.
Nice to meet you. I'm Andrea.
Nice to meet you, Andrea.
I'm like, wait, I know this name. Oh, okay.
Okay. Tell us what you're proposing to do.
Okay, we are proposing to replace 7 windows. So that would be 2 front first floor windows, 1 side window, side picture window, for lack of a better term, a small picture window, and the rear door.
I'm having trouble figuring out which house this is. So you are on the top side of the street.
We would be on the side farther from Main Street.
Okay.
By top side, you mean east or west?
I mean,
Uphill?
actually, you're uphill. You're on the uphill side of the street.
Which is the east
You're
side.
across from James and Juhi.
Yeah.
Yes, we're,
Okay.
Are you
yes,
next to
yes.
Jennifer Seymour? Are you like attached to?
No, we bought their house.
Oh, yes. That's
Yes.
right.
I didn't know she
Solar.
left.
Yes. So we bought from.
Okay, so I know
from-
exactly where.
Okay. So yes, it would be the east side of the house across the street from James,
Mhm.
and then we are the southern of the two houses connected. We are the
Southern,
southernmost.
I know. Okay. Two front windows, side window, upstairs. It's 4. And then this is the back of the house, or this is the side of the house?
That would be the back of the house. So it would be these two windows,
Okay.
and then you have one on the side, which would be the
This-
master bed,
This
which
one?
is the one on the side.
Okay.
So that's looking basically right here,
Uh-huh.
and then
And these two.
no, those two would stay.
What's
Just-
the same?
The rear door here.
Oh, and then the door. Okay.
Yes, and then that window, which is going to be the side of the house on the driveway side
Uh-huh.
towards the front. So that's the side living room window,
Right.
and then that's what I'd call I guess for lack of a better term, a picture window. It's
Right.
on the staircase, but just a larger non-opening window.
Non-opening.
Yeah, it'll just
Okay.
basically be just going from a single pane to a double pane. And then the first floor, the two front windows.
Okay. Cool.
Makes a little more sense when you see it from inside.
Yeah, I bet. So
Okay, now-
this house is in which? It's in the local district.
But is this one of the worker houses?
Yeah.
Jennifer came as an applicant before she was on the board, but I don't know what it was for because it was before I was on board. Porch,
Always something to do.
carpentry,
Oh, it was-
something.
It was probably the porch.
Okay.
The porch was all redone.
So this is in the local district, and then James and Juhi and that guy with the asphalt, which is across the street, they're in the national district because of the way that it's drawn.
I guess the question I have is that, the issue is that these windows are vinyl windows.
They'd be a hybrid. It's a hybrid polymer wood.
Well, except, it's essentially a PVC window with wood trim. I mean, if you look at the details, for example, that very clearly is that's all vinyl. The same thing with this.
So in this, in the district and in this part of the district, we allow clad wood windows. Oop. Sorry, Al. But not solid, solid synthetic windows.
This would be kind of a
So it's saying here that the frame is made out of rigid Fibrix material,
yes, which is
like a wood pulp and polymer.
yes.
So we would allow either a solid wood window or like an aluminum clad wood window, but not a non-wood window. Which
Okay.
So solid wood or aluminum clad wood.
But like a solid vinyl or like a solid aluminum window, we don't allow.
Mhm. Even with it being partially.
With wood pulp in it.
Well,
This
because
is
what you end up with is a very beautiful window if you've
Mhm.
ever seen them. Extremely expensive, very beautiful window that would look much more like wood than an actual aluminum clad or some kind of clad window, which is why we went with that.
Right.
Which would basically be, look wood from the inside, but from the outside would be a completely different material.
Right.
Because what it does do is it gives the appearance of an actual 100% wood window that is painted.
Is it a paintable finish or is it a factory finish?
It's a factory finish, but it is paintable.
It's paintable.
It's paintable, yes.
So is that what's the Fibrex? Is that I think that's the name of it.
That's what they're
I'm just taking
proprietary.
notes.
Yeah,
so
yep.
Thanks.
It's kind of their proprietary,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of to make a more beautiful window is essentially the reason that they're doing the mixture there, which I have seen them in person and made to look very beautiful and very natural, right down to the joints, which are
So,
nothing is molded, it's put together, so you actually have the traditional
Right.
cut in
So
the
I don't
joint.
know if we've seen I haven't personally in the past couple of years been proposed with a solid synthetic painted finish window.
I mean, okay. So here's you probably haven't been board before,
No,
right?
no.
Okay, so we're not trying to be stupid. So
Yeah,
here's
yeah.
what happened. So you can probably see Sean there has the
These are
our
the
design standards
design
manual,
standards
which you
for
might
the-
not, when you bought your house, usually you would, sign up for your water bill and you'd get a copy of that. Right now, we've run out of copies.
Okay.
It is available
But it is online.
on the village website.
Mhm.
So you look for Historic District Review Board, and then it's obvious enough there's documents. So it would have been helpful for you to see that obviously before you came in. So that's the document that we work from, so that we make sure that everyone's held to the same standards and everything is fair.
Gotcha.
That's the gist of it. It also gives our applicants lots of guidelines to refer to.
Mhm.
We are about to update these design guidelines. So right now we're having a lot of discussions on Sunday afternoons about things like this problem right here.
Mhm.
This isn't in our design standards.
Mhm.
It's technically not allowed. I think when we've looked at new materials, and not specifically windows, but new materials for like signs, we
Mhm.
approve signage. We've seen some new materials come across our desk. It might be helpful, and I don't know, Al would kind of, he's our chair, obviously,
I'll
knows
be-
more
I'll
about
be-
this than
I'll
I
be
do.
the grump. No.
But I mean, sometimes when people bring in newer materials, they especially like a lot of the windows we reviewed,
Mhm.
they'll bring in like an actual physical sample.
Mhm.
Usually, your window distributor is more than happy to do that.
Mhm.
So so I'm just trying to like introduce you to our process, walk you through it a little bit. So that's why there's a lot of pauses happening right now because we're
Gotcha.
just thinking through how do we approach this.
Gotcha. Because I read the.
Because I've never seen this before in my life.
Yeah, I was not familiar with the design
Yeah.
standards book, which I may
Yeah.
be into these for some money already. So
you just
without seeing that, so I will do whatever I need to do to.
yeah. It like I said, there used to be physical copies, and now there are not.
What are the windows currently?
The windows currently are extremely old wood.
Okay.
So they are old.
One One is a new, s- from,
One had already been replaced.
yeah, one has already
Yeah.
been replaced, the side window, it's an Anderson, it's a very old Anderson 400,
Mhm.
from what I'm told by the Anderson rep.
Yeah.
Probably, 60s,
This
70s.
this thing.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
And everything,
And these are wood windows?
those are wood with storm windows.
Storm windows on the
So
outside.
actually, the storm windows, I mean,
That's what you see on the outside.
yeah, what you see on the outside is storm windows, which essentially, what you would see with our new windows would be a nice screen.
I think the thing, you have to understand that the issue that we wind up dealing with all the time really has to do with trying to save historic fabric.
Mhm.
This particular house, is part of what was built for the workers in the foundry.
Mhm.
And so we try to be careful with it, while accommodating as much as possible what the owners want to do. And so that's why the standards were written the way they were written, is that there's a certain amount of flexibility that we can offer, but ultimately, we try to keep whatever changes are made to be true or at least respectful of what is there, which is historic.
Mhm.
And the problem is that, I mean, looking at this, I mean, I've seen this before, and we've actually rejected this before. Who's the guy that was Kathleen's neighbor? He had come up
Oh,
with
the
this.
architect on the corner, Miss Connie's old house.
Yeah,
Okay. So he
He had-
proposed these?
yeah.
Oh, I just didn't remember.
And we said no, because I don't think,
This material, this Fibrix material?
yeah, the Anderson Renewal, it's a brand name.
But I don't think.
Okay,
did
I
he-
think that was for a different, I don't, the windows that he proposed,
Well, he proposed a couple of times.
right, but that had to do with the, because they were insert
Yeah,
windows.
they were like 3/4 of an inch.
But I don't think
too
that it
small.
was this material.
Because these,
Well, but that's a good,
That's another question too.
Another
that we
question.
discussed, yeah.
these would be custom built. They're custom built at the factory
Hmm?
to match our exact window sizes. So everything
But-
would fit in.
I know, but the thing is that that's true of any window.
Yeah, is it the?
No, there's no company that, well, I take it back, because Anderson used to do that. But I think that, you know, it's very costly for them to have a whole bunch of windows sitting in a warehouse. And so, that's all they do, they do custom windows. The second issue is that, there is an existing wood window that is there now. And so the question becomes, and they will take out the stops, which are what the sashes ride up and down on, and the windows themselves, the window sashes themselves, and then they're gonna insert this. And so what this does is it makes the opening smaller.
Because all of the framing to hold these sashes is within what was just your original sash.
Mm-hmm.
So your sort of daylight, the amount of glass essentially in the window
Would be
shrinks
smaller.
down by the thickness of the new sash and the new framing. So you lose sort of proportions of the windows on the facade.
Well, it looks like, see, it's 4 inches, this is gonna sit on top of your existing sill, so you're losing 4.5 inches there, you're losing 3 inches up here. Oh, I need to take it back then. See what I mean? In other words, this entire window is going to be set within the existing frame.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you've got a problem because the, in order for anything to pass tonight, you need to get a unanimous vote. And.
Well, I mean,
But the thing is.
usually we workshop this stuff.
Well, what we need to do is we need to give them some direction as far as what we would accept or would not accept.
Mhm.
And so, that and also, it would be easier for us on your application if you could take a picture of the facade.
Okay.
And sort of point to which windows you in fact are replacing.
So a larger.
Yeah, zoom
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Go across the street,
Yep.
take a picture of the whole facade.
But I mean, I think that what we're gonna have to do is, we're gonna need to talk about whether or not,
You know what, take pictures
patented
of all
five
three
bricks.
sides of your house,
Mhm.
just so we can see.
So I'll get full.
So we
zoom
have
outs.
context,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
'cause it's-
So full, yeah.
That's
rather
why you were
than-
like, wait, which house
Yeah.
is
And
this?
then we'll just circle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah, I think that there's really a couple of issues here. One is, it's not uncommon for us to see a house just like your house
Mhm.
where all of the windows were already replaced
Mhm.
with like something really crappy that's
Mhm.
already worn out, and then we're considering what to like replace the replacement
Mhm.
with. But you are lucky / perhaps burdened with having all your original windows.
Mhm.
So to have those removed,
Well, I'm told the originals, from what he said the originals look like sometime early 1900s, like
Mhm.
1920s, 1930s maybe.
These windows on the
the wood windows.
The
porch.
and then there's a wood. Then there's the Anderson 400, which is probably like a 60s or a 70s.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the only one. That's actually the only one that's actually stopping any
It's the only one double pane.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not even double pane. There's nothing double pane.
Oh, really?
So our main
God.
our main concern is we moved in December
Oh, God.
Mhm.
23rd, and
Awesome.
we had a very cold January,
Yeah.
which is the main reason of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So an aluminum clad wood window would be something like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Anderson 400.
You see those a lot. right?
Okay.
yeah. And the other thing, if you do get a chance, take a look at the book because it talks about certain
No,
things.
yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of the book. I apologize for not.
No,
not
I think, there's a little generation of people who've moved here recently that, didn't get.
Because I looked through the code that I found online.
What is our application? I don't have it in front of me, but I
Yeah.
wish maybe, was that mentioned in our application? I think it is.
I wrote the application, but I don't remember. I think, though, but just to take a step back, the bigger issue is just the willingness of the board to consider
Right.
having these windows removed at all.
Right.
Well,
So I'm sorry, the oldest, the early 20th century windows are only on the front facade of the house, the front of the house, and everything else is a recent replacement, or you're not sure?
Well, the picture window is definitely just.
No, not that thing.
That's
and
just
not,
a pane
not the
glass.
Anderson from
Yeah.
the 60s, but I think on the rear of the house you were proposing.
well, I guess, I'm just trying to envision where this picture would, because what you're saying is that just a fixed glass. That's all it is.
It's just fixed, it's just a single pane
Pane.
of fixed glass into a frame.
It's on the staircase.
It's on what?
It's on the
On the
staircase.
staircase.
Oh, okay, that one.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
that one, so
alright.
it's basically just
It's just a small window that.
it's
which is-
maybe 4 feet by 4 feet, maybe
It looks
4.
like they used a bathroom window. for a
Yeah,
hallway.
it looks, it's like a very, it's just a single pane,
Yeah.
just put in, looks like it's put into a very simple frame, epoxied in.
And then these
So I-
windows on the rear, these you think might be original?
I don't think anything's original, what our,
2/2.
what our
But they're what?
window contractor thought everything. He said that he identified the one. He said that definitely looks like an old
Right.
Anderson 400 single pane. So however far back you have to go to when 400s were actually single pane. The others are old wood windows. He thinks from sometime in the early 1900s, maybe 1930ish, 1920,
Yeah,
20ish.
they're wood. They're 2/2.
And those are, that was one of our concerns, is those are just rattling in the,
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
the frames. They're kind of,
Well, I guess, you know, the thing that concerns me is that, obviously, an Anderson replacement window will do the same as this. In other words, they'll probably, take out the stop and the sash and reinstall these windows within, and so thereby reducing the opening. It's kind of hard to tell from the photographs, if that would make a significant difference as far as the appearance.
and now we're as far as the size.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think that the Anderson 400 series are the same as like a Marvin window where it's a full, your sash, I mean, the sashes themselves may be thicker. That was with Peter Hoffman's house. Just the actual construction of the window, the sash proportions were wider than the historic window, but it's not the type of thing where the whole mechanism is going into the daylight
Right.
hole.
Well,
it should be a full. They are a. I can never remember.
So the
which is
glazing remains the same proportions. The sash increases.
Ultimately, I mean,
Yeah.
it's by a bit, but it is
Yeah.
as if you.
Because I remember him being within.
It's
like
not just
fractions.
taking. It's not just taking out the sashes and then
Right.
putting it in the opening. It's you take off all the molding on the inside or the outside. You take the whole thing out.
Right.
You replace the whole thing. So it's the rough opening stays the same.
Right. Yeah, because I remember that discussion, and it was like 3/4 of an inch difference or something.
Yeah, I
It
don't
was
even
really,
know if it was
was
that much. And
tiny,
also, it was
yeah.
those huge,
They were
huge
huge
windows.
windows.
Which is basically, you're speaking of the difference in the sizes of the sash.
Yeah,
Should
it
be
was
this
because
ad-
this other this previous applicant, when we reviewed all the options, it was that his original windows were just had narrower styles,
Mm-hmm.
and so even though he was replacing a sash that was the same size with a he was
Mhm.
replacing a sash. It was just the way that the newer sashes are constructed. They just had wider styles, but it was a significant sized window, so it was less of a loss overall.
One thing that might, I'm just looking at the actual pictures of our windows, especially with the two front windows here, when you see the actual space that the storm windows take up,
Mm-hmm.
we may actually gain or break even from the storm windows not being there.
Yeah.
Because it'll just be a simple
Right.
screen. Because that's actually one of the things that we don't like about the look is that
And the
the
storm
storm
It's a little
window
boxed
takes, I
in.
mean,
obstructs it, yeah.
it not only obstructs the view, it's a little noisy and it takes away I think some of the beauty of the house.
Is the trim, the exterior trim around the window, is that currently wood or is that aluminum or
No, I believe it's all aluminum.
it's all aluminum? So that is going around your,
The best recollection, that's all aluminum, and then I think then you see the groove, and then I think you have
Yeah, the
built, like a
channel where
built
it's-
out,
Is that vinyl siding or wood?
that's in essential vinyl siding.
Okay, that makes sense. then.
Yeah.
okay, so what would our
Yeah,
suggestions
what,
be?
What are we? I think the part where visually I'm most concerned is really the front.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously that's right there at the street.
Mhm.
And so the question really is that what are we willing to accept on the front? And just looking at these other windows, this one looks high. It's kind of hard to tell where this is. But it looks like it's kind of low. Is this a bathroom window or something like that?
No, that's a side window to
Okay.
the living room.
Oh, to the living room. Okay.
It's kind of at the bottom of the steps, so it's kind of a bit of a living room window and a bit of a hall window almost.
All right, and so you're talking about these two windows?
And those two windows are at the back of the house.
Okay, and where's this is also on the side?
That's at the side of the house, towards the back. So that's the back corner of the house is here, and I apologize that we
I
didn't
can
take the
envision
great
it, yeah.
photos.
I guess we should probably come up with some specific direction because I think you're replacing the windows that you can afford to replace right now.
That's what,
And you're looking at, what we can probably assume is that at some point in the future, you're gonna wanna come back and replace other windows.
which the other windows would be the two, it would basically just be two front, and then
Upper story.
two upper story front
Okay.
windows, which there's just 4 front facing windows.
Okay.
And then there's one more side window towards the back,
Okay.
and one more, or two more rather. No, I'm sorry. 2 more side windows on the back, and then one on the kitchen just facing the back.
So I think that what we ought to do is come up with a recommendation form that assumes that all the windows are gonna be replaced, so.
And we would be fully open. I mean, our goal, you hit it on the head that I would replace everything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to replace everything uniform.
Right.
So whatever we get approved, the board here,
That'll set the precedent for all of the others.
yes.
So I guess, any thoughts as far as Fibrex? I mean,
We'll have the rest of the board here to discuss it. Conversation is pretty limited. I would look at your aluminum clad options, just
Mhm.
because that's your safest bet.
Mm-hmm.
Bring some cut sheets for that. Should we talk about Muntins? You might wanna
Well,
consider looking at 2 over 2
the
since that
simulated
was already.
divided lights,
Yes,
I mean,
simulated divided lights.
there's a certain configuration which is called simulated divided lights. It's
Okay.
explained in the manual, and you can take a look at it.
So instead
But
of like the grills that are stuck on the window that, are flimsy, these are adhered
On both
To
sides,
the glazing
and
on-
there's a
yeah.
spacer in the middle.
on both sides, yeah.
All right, I guess, though, the question that Sean is raising is whether or not the windows are replaced or this is a replacement window which is set into the existing frame, right?
Yeah, if it's an insertion or if it is a full
Whether it's a full.
replacement.
And I guess the part where I would push for a full replacement would be on the front. I'd be willing to live with the other way, which is gonna be cheaper for him on the side than the back.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you know, the house, it does have all of the trim and everything is covered up with the siding,
Yeah.
so it's a little hard to see what it is that we're, you know, it's not,
Yeah.
we're not matching to anything, is what I'm saying. You know,
well, yeah,
on the exterior, because there's nothing there.
I mean,
Unless we get into a discussion of removing all of your aluminum siding and
Right now there's vinyl siding.
vinyl siding,
Yeah,
yeah, and
which-
aluminum trim,
well,
Then
which
it's,
is a discussion we love to have.
Oh,
if it's
well,
in-
it is something that I would like to do in the future.
Yeah,
If my
Of
bank
course.
account allowed me to.
that's why they
Come
give you
here
a
with a
30-year
larger
mortgage.
proposal,
That's
I
how
would-
long it takes to do it all.
well,
Piece by piece.
the thing is that the aluminum cladding on the trim was probably installed when they installed the storm windows.
Sure.
And then I would think that the vinyl siding is something which was added on later on.
Right.
I think that I think that the front windows are in fact more important than the side windows and the back windows, obviously. So you're not in the National District, even though probably it should have, because it does.
Forestry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does look like worker housing.
Yeah.
But he can have the clad Anderson windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
According to the standards.
According to the standards, you can have aluminum clad windows, and according to our standards, because it's not addressed specifically, but we've required it with precedent, is that it has to be a true full replacement and not an insertion.
How about, would we insist on that? How do you feel about the side windows and the back windows?
I'm really not. I've never seen this Fibrix. This like.
No, I'm talking about as far as whether it's a full window replacement or a replacement window.
Oh well, I mean, I kind of feel less. I feel less married to it because it's not. Again, because it's.
How visible is that from a public right of way?
Well, it's not even an
It
issue of the
is.
visibility, but but there's no context for what it
Right.
should look like because all of the trim and everything is all covered up.
Yeah.
Well,
It's not like it's something. It's not like it's. When I think those insertion windows, they become much more problematic when it's being set into, when there is existing historic trim and siding and everything,
Yes.
and it's throwing off those proportions. But with this,
well, but the thing is that I can almost guarantee you that the trim is what you see as clad, because if you look at the vinyl siding, basically what they typically wind up doing is they wind up putting the stop against the trim and then running the siding into that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the existing wood trim is underneath this aluminum cladding.
right, but also it has no profile at all. I mean, it's totally flattened out. So there's no, is it just a straight flat 4-inch board, or if that was removed, would there be design? That's kind of the other thing too, is because when you're putting the insertion into it, you end up with all of these vertical separations.
All right, but that's usually set back. It's away from the face. I mean, typically, most.
You're saying that this window unit pops out from the.
No, it's set
No.
in.
it sets in.
Okay.
It's set in like a normal sash.
In other words, typically as far as the windows go, usually, this is the casing,
Yeah.
and that is usually a flat board. and then you wind up having all of the trim for the windows on the inside, which covers the joints where the casing
Oh,
meets the siding.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, my feeling is that I wouldn't have the only thing I would then just check with the building inspector is, egress.
mhm.
I mean, how do you feel, Andrea? Because I don't have a problem with, certainly on the back windows, I don't have a problem with an insert window, but even on the side, I wouldn't have a problem. But I think,
I think on the primary facade, I think maintaining the proportions of the original windows,
right.
and there's only two.
Also, I don't even
Is-
know how
is
visible the back
important.
would be.
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't even think it's really visible from
Well,
the public right away.
It's
Our-
probably visible
my
from like St.
experience.
Mary's or from maybe the
Well, actually, it's sort of like the windows in James and whoever his
Yeah,
neighbor
James
is.
and
yeah.
On the
Yeah.
back, you really can't see them.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the only person that could see that would be, other than our direct neighbor, Walter Ulmer, maybe Eric and Eliza that own the wine shop.
Right.
They're in the large orange house right behind us.
Right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you wouldn't even see from St. Mary's because that
They're in the way.
that house kind of
But
looms
that's kind of,
because
But-
so the backyard of my house.
yeah.
So as you come out the back,
Uh-huh.
you basically just have a flat brick area.
Yep.
And then it's terraced
Yes.
to the hill.
Yeah.
So basically from my backyard is terraced high enough that
There
you
is-
can I actually get a view of the mountain.
Huh.
I actually get a mountain view across the Hudson because it's so high. So
Wow.
it's you can't see, other than Eric and Eliza can probably see down from their top windows to my back.
Yeah, that's what I was
Other
thinking.
than that, it's-
yeah.
it's-
I
That's,
know. It's
that's
a
not
pretty,
a public way.
Right.
It's not.
And so the
That's-
only other public way would be it would be in the parking lot next to the pet shop, but I think that angle is too
That's still
sharp that you
private
wouldn't see it anyway.
property.
I don't think because our neighbor Neil, he's the joined house
Right.
to the north of us.
Yeah.
His yard goes way down. It's very strange how they landscape
Because-
the yards because
yeah.
Neil's yard they went with a much flatter kind
Some
of dug,
people flattened their yards, I think, in the 50s.
because there's like
yeah.
a weird retaining wall
Yeah.
kind of varying thing going
Yeah.
on. So if you're familiar with Eric and Eliza's house up on
Yeah.
the hill,
Uh-huh.
there's appears to be a large retaining wall. So if you picture this as my house, a large retaining wall coming here.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're
And
talking
because
about.
you have my house, you have Neil's house connected
Yeah.
to the north.
Mhm.
Neil's yard is much flatter. It goes slightly up, but much
Right.
flatter, kind of backing up to a wall, if I remember
Yep.
correctly. Then mine is actually up top, so there's
Because they didn't change the grade in the backyard.
so
yeah.
on mine there's actually a retaining wall
Mhm.
on either side.
Yep.
So I have a small retaining wall going to Neil's, so I'm kind of
Retaining walls. Yeah.
so what you can pretty much what I've seen.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the pet store parking lot goes. Is it in the back or on the side?
It's on the side, but again, it would only be you'd have. So our purview is over anything that you can see from a
Mhm.
public right of way. So if you were on
Excuse me.
Main Street on the sidewalk,
Mhm.
there's just a gap in between those two buildings. But I don't even think you'd be able to
Yeah.
see your
So
house.
what
from
we're
there.
saying is that the public's experience with the back of your house is very limited.
Uh-huh.
So there's less pressure
concern,
to
yes.
constrain
Yeah.
the window proportions,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to your house is important. It was part of the foundry workers' housing. It's amazing that it's still
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
there.
no, we.
Because so many of those houses have been swallowed
Mhm.
by later additions. So this is just like such an amazing example that you have of how the foundry workers' housing evolved. And, these little front porches are just very consistent.
Mhm.
And James and Juhi did a beautiful job of restoring theirs. The neighbor who's attached to them is working on that too. I think to understand and respect the history of that little street
Mhm.
and its story. It's the proportions of the window is important.
Yes.
It tells part of the story of how this worker housing evolved. And some of the earlier examples of the worker housing, the windows are much smaller. They couldn't afford the glazing. But
Mhm.
then some of these people got married and they started to have children, and then we were having this conversation about Parsonage Street was the street where like men who worked at the foundry had families, so they had like a slightly bigger house, you know, a little more done up.
So our house would have been more for
A little,
single
maybe a
workers?
step up. Yeah, there's some story there. So
Oh,
like the
interesting.
size
Okay.
of the glazing
Mhm.
is important.
Yes, yeah.
So you know, just those two front windows are important. So that I would say, you know, we would require, you know, to what I'm losing my
Let's
Not-
talk about, let's call them replacement windows and insert windows.
yes, replacement versus insert.
So a
yeah.
replacement window would shrink the size
No, replacement
insert.
window.
Oh, would replace the whole
the
thing.
exact thing,
Insert is
yes.
yes, just as simple.
I didn't want to say the wrong word.
Yes.
All right, so on the front, certainly on the front, you know, there's no question that we would need a replacement window. I think that where we're willing to be a little bit more flexible and allow insert windows are really on the side and certainly on the back.
Yeah, I would say the back is not even.
Not even something that we would review.
Yep.
Okay,
Understandable.
So on the when's our next meeting?
25th.
Every week.
The 25th is our. Oh,
Voting.
right, because that's
Voting
the voting
meeting,
session now. So on the 25th, we're going to have a voting session. If you can bring the wider photographs of the front facade and the side facade, identifying the ones that you want to switch out, and cut sheets for an aluminum clad full replacement window. We can take a look at those. If you aren't able to get it all done by the 25th, which is only 2 weeks, then the meeting after that's on May 9th,
Okay.
which is our actual monthly meeting.
So we're looking at
yeah.
wider photos of all sides of the house.
And what we, you know, if everything all, you know, shakes out, what we can do is we can approve changing however many windows you want to change,
Mhm.
regardless of when you do it.
Okay.
Your certificate of appropriateness will last for 3 years.
2 years.
Oh,
2
2
years.
Okay, I thought it was only a year. Okay.
No, it'll be for 2 years. So you'd have, you know, 2 building seasons
Um,
to address
alright.
it. And you could always have it renewed if you needed
Okay.
to. So
All right, so
As far as renewal by Anderson Windows, the Fibrex, is there any shot of that? Because it's actually, what we went for is pretty much the top end Anderson. We didn't want vinyl windows.
We appreciate that, believe
Yeah.
me, but
Because I didn't, the one thing I didn't want is cheap vinyl windows that
I know.
you actually touch them and they bend and
Yeah.
it just, the sun's gonna
And they
hit them,
don't
they're
last.
gonna,
Right.
they're gonna
Yeah.
work, and they look cheap when you look at
Yeah.
them. I went and I looked at Anderson 400s, which are the top end, Andersons that you would be able to buy just normally in a store. The Anderson renewals come directly only from, you can only buy them and get them installed directly
Mhm.
by Anderson. And it's designed to be their most beautiful window. What you are getting is the maintenance free because you have polymer mixed in with wood.
Mhm.
But what you get is a much closer window to an actual wood window than from the exterior. at
Right,
least,
yeah,
Than
no.
an Anderson 400.
Yeah.
Because an Anderson 400, it's going to look like a wood window. It's basically for somebody that wants to look like they have wood windows when you're sitting in their living room. But what the public
And the
is going to
exterior
see
is
is
aluminum clad.
an
right.
aluminum clad window, which is what we wanted to steer away from because that's not what we wanted in
Yeah,
the first place. Which
You know, we don't have our full board here, so it's hard to get into a deep discussion about it.
what you may want to do is that when you do have your stuff ready, come back with some samples of what this Fibrex looks
Yeah.
like, because I got a feeling I know what it is, but I'm not totally, I can't say that I know exactly what it is. I mean, I've seen Anderson really pushing this, but I'm not, I haven't seen the sample of what
Yeah.
this
Okay.
A physical
vibrates.
sample would be really
Yeah.
helpful because we just can't discuss it
Yes.
without having it in front of us.
No, understood.
And, you know, having two board members not here.
Yeah,
is-
because, the issue is that, can, what's the difference the thing that I get very concerned about is that when we're dealing with this stuff, because it just, I've seen a lot of vinyl windows which just don't hold up.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like you said, you look at it and you can sort of see it's cheap. But if they do a better job with this stuff, then
Is
it
it-
may be something which we may
What are you
wanna.
pointing at? All the mechanisms, the guts? Yeah.
Yeah, because because they make it's maybe that's what would be the I fully
Yeah.
understand that. Like I kind of got to show you the window
Yeah.
in front of you.
We've even
Um,
had people bring in samples of wood windows we haven't seen before.
Mm.
So, if you can get that little corner,
The corner cut.
the corner.
And I think it would be helpful if you could get one that is painted from the dealer.
Okay.
Because if it has a paintable finish, and it's
yeah, if it's got
credible, and it I mean, everything has a paintable finish technically, but it's whether or not it holds the paint for more than
Yeah.
a year.
paintable doors.
Then that could be it could be a good resource for
Uh.
other people if it's
Right. Then we learned something. Not opposed to that. So yeah, I guess that's
And then also your back door.
Oh yes, the door.
Are we considering?
is that our
Are we considering
see
this
that,
to just
or-
the back facade to just be totally out of our scope?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not totally sure which house, but I know the row of houses,
it's really
and they're all cheek to jowl next to each
Yeah.
other.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so I really can't see how you can see the back.
I
can't
we
see
can
the back.
ask Carolyn. to walk
Carolyn,
around.
go walk around.
Yeah.
She does lots of walking
Chances
towards
are
it.
we're not going to
Yeah,
have to look
the
at the
back
door.
door I can guarantee you cannot see from
Carolyn has an encyclopedic knowledge.
at least anywhere public.
Yeah.
I think you would have to get into either my neighbors or Eric and Eliza's because it's actually it's so sunken down. There's such
Yeah,
a big hill
I
that
know.
anything on the first floor. I don't know if you could maybe see a piece of my
That's
of the
not
windows.
enough.
Okay. So the back door you can drop from your application.
Okay.
Well, we can modify the.
We'll discuss it when we
Yeah.
see you next time.
Okay.
You're not doing it before
We'll do a
then,
little
are you?
walk around.
What's that?
You weren't planning on replacing it
Well,
within the
we-
next 2 weeks.
We just keep well as soon as we get as soon as we get an application, we'll stamp for approval. We're gonna get
Move
it done
forward.
ASAP. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try to bring a sample of the, I'm sure I'll be able to get a hold of a sample.
Right.
Okay.
But what I would do is also explore the other, the clad window,
Okay.
so that
Yeah.
you have both
Yeah.
available.
Bring in Plan B.
And we can approve something for it,
Okay,
okay?
very good.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate you
Congratulations.
coming in and
On all
No.
on all fronts,
yeah.
house baby and everything else.
New windows, new heating.
So to get on the schedule for the 25th.
To get on the schedule for the 25th, we will have Kathleen add you to the
Yeah.
schedule.
Okay.
It's our monthly workshop meeting, but it has been opened up to voting. So I just don't know where
You'll
you'll
submit
end up.
your materials to the clerk, Jeff,
Okay.
and he will make sure they get to Kathleen.
Okay.
Just get it in as soon as you can.
Gotcha.
And she'll, because that way if we need additional materials or if she sees a hole in your application,
Okay.
she'll let you know, and then you'll have time to remedy the situation.
Yeah, so you need to give it to the clerk by the Friday before the meeting.
Okay.
So that would be the 19th. So you've got a week. Got a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
Excellent, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Well,
you.
nice meeting you all.
Yeah.
Nice
Okay.
meeting you.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
meeting us so late.
Thank you.
Okay, we talked about minutes.
Right? Sean had a
Mm.
correction, I have
Right.
yours.
We booked our
excuse
meeting
me.
for the 18th.
We escrow, we've reviewed that, so we just drop that off with Jeff.
Yep.
And the public hearing is May 1st.
Yep, got it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When are we voting on the minutes? Once I correct them and,
Well, we should probably vote when at least they're here, but we could do it,
On
we could
the
do it
25th.
on the, I mean, doesn't matter,
Yeah.
if we do it on the
Okay.
25th or on the 9th.
Yeah, about midnight, yeah. 25th is getting longer and longer. Okay,
Let's just do it on, we can just do it on the 9th,
okay.
at the minute.
Cause I'm gonna shovel some more your way, cause we've been meeting a lot and Michael's been awesomely diligent, very
Oh,
quick turnaround, so, you know, so you just understand there's gonna be a couple, you know,
send out the latest version of the ones and,
that I already cleaned up from your comments.
yeah,
Okay,
and,
Little
what
reminder.
we'll do is, we'll see if we can zip through the public hearings on the 25th,
okay, yeah, I just wanna make sure, yeah, I'm on top
If
of
we
it.
can zip through the public hearings,
yeah.
well, it's more than public hearings. It's now 2 public hearings, plus 20 Boulevard,
On the
plus
9th?
these 3 dudes.
Yeah.
On the 25th.
On the 25th. Oh, I thought you were saying let's wait until the 9th to vote on the minutes.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
what
I was
Sean
saying that
was
just
saying.
so that
That's
we
fine
wouldn't
with
have
me.
to overload that meeting.
No, that's fine with
but
me, cause I'm still awaiting comments from
What,
Kathleen.
how many, you're working on another set of minutes?
Well, I can't remember off the top of my head where we left off, but I
Okay.
have like a couple more from Michael. We've been having a lot of meetings,
Yeah, do you think you'd have those
so
done, by next week when we meet to talk about standards?
I think I can do that.
Okay, so maybe,
Let me just make sure,
Well,
and
but
just
next
before I
week
forget.
is, all right,
Wait, next week?
next
The
week is
18th.
the standards, meeting.
we can't vote on them during that meeting,
Oh,
but
I
at
was
least
looking at
if
the
we
wrong
could
month.
like
I'm
look
sorry.
at, I mean, at least if you have them done and we have,
I will circulate, okay, I'm gonna,
you can open it up for people giving you
I'm going
comments for that.
to, I'm gonna do all this on Friday.
Can you talk about this after you adjourn?
Yes, didn't we just
Sorry.
adjourn?
Yes,
Oh, I
we
thought we
can.
already adjourned.
I thought we did.
So
No, we didn't. I asked for a motion to adjourn and we.
I interrupted, I'm sorry.
I would move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Please.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all.
Okay.
Did we know that?